Okay, so we have quite a few people that have been misinterpreting the new documents from the defense, and it's causing a wide range of people just saying strange things. So let's get started.
Had a little bit of brain fog going on, so I wasn't thinking the clearest. Now that I've been, got an opportunity to see these documents and see them with a clear mind, I have an idea of what some of the documents may mean and what we could possibly see.
Nope, you still have brain fog. Let's take a look.
What do we know that Brian Kohberger touched inside of that house that has his DNA on it? Correct. That would be the knife sheath, which could explain and be the reason why they're using that DNA and why they feel so confident in touch DNA. There could be other DNA sources there, but the reason they were using the touch DNA is maybe perhaps, and lo and behold, leather, you can leave fingerprints on leather. So is it possible that he left his fingerprints and his DNA on the knife sheath? So I, for one, do believe that we are going to see fingerprints at this scene that belong to Brian Kohberger. And this is going to be one huge nail in the coffin. I mean, how do you explain that now?
So, where Drunk Turkey is getting this notion that Kohberger may have left fingerprints is because of this argument from the defense's motion to compel the expert opinions and reports. It says, this is a capital murder case and nothing about it is clear cut. The expert issues are complex, involving many different facets of DNA, cellular data, cell tower coverage, and drive testing, car identification, crime scene and blood splatter analysis, fingerprint analysis, forensic pathology, and electronic device analysis of the suspect, victims, and alternative suspects, and social media accounts. Okay, what they named off on that is a list of the obvious. It's a murder investigation. So there's all those moving parts, all those things that have to be analyzed. So you're going to have fingerprint analysts, you're going to have people looking at the blood spatter, people looking at the DNA, etc., etc., etc. That doesn't mean Kohberger's fingerprints were left at the scene. I'm sure there were fingerprints at the scene that had to be analyzed and people ruled out. But the reason why I don't believe his fingerprints were at the scene is because they would have found his name a lot sooner if they had been at the scene. And let me show you why I believe that. So if you recall, a while back, I did a video about why people have FBI numbers assigned to them. And one of the main reasons is employment background checks. And one of the things that does end up on that file is your fingerprints if they are run as part of a background check. And yes, civilian fingerprints, non-criminal, can end up in AFIS as part of those background checks. This talks about AFIS, and it says, the FBI receives fingerprints as a result of an arrest or through a background check for employment, licensing, or other non-criminal practice purposes. The fingerprints are processed locally and forwarded to a state or federal agency, which then sends the fingerprints to the FBI's AFIS for processing. Here's another overview. It states AFIS contains millions of records of criminals, terrorists, as well as civil subjects. Fingerprint data collected by other law enforcement agencies in the United States is also shared with the FBI. Data captured during a criminal booking, the U.S. Visa program, which is a U.S. Customs and Border Protection Management System, or during employment background checks ends up to the AFIS database. According to a report published by the IB Times, the FBI has the largest biometric database of criminal as well as non-criminal subjects. Now, why do I believe Kohberger's fingerprints would be in AFIS? It's because he worked as a part-time security guard for the Pleasant Valley School District after he graduated from high school. That's the same school district he attended and also that his mom worked for. So let's take a look at their policies. So this is from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Department of Education, and it says Pennsylvania school law requires that all applicants for employment in public and private schools, employees of independent contractors seeking business with public and private schools, and student teacher candidates undergo background checks if they will have direct contact with students. And here are the 3 checks that are required: Department of Human Services Child Abuse History Clearance, Pennsylvania State Police Request for Criminal Records Check, and Federal Criminal History Record Information. So I believe his would have been at least in the Pennsylvania state database and in federal databases. So I believe if his fingerprints had been at the scene, they would have had his name a lot sooner. Now, I haven't been able to find out for sure whether he needed one through Washington State University to be a PhD teacher's assistant. When it's a regular, like, staff employee, like somebody that's actually faculty of the university, they are required to go through a background check if they will be working around minors or developmentally delayed students, which there are students that haven't turned 18 yet that are freshmen. So it's possible that the TAs also have to go through a background check, but I just haven't received a definitive answer on that yet. But we know he was working around minors when he was a security guard in Pennsylvania, so he would have had to have his fingerprints done for that. Now, as far as that document, again, just because it says in there fingerprint analysis, an analyst, doesn't mean that the prosecution's going to call one. We haven't seen their list. It's sealed. We don't even know if the defense is going to call one. So the people that are saying that that list proves that they're going to call a fingerprint analysis, no, it doesn't. Okay. So this is something that's just unknown at this time, who their experts are going to be. So let's continue.
Fingerprint expert is more important than a DNA expert when the defense has at minimum 4 DNA experts on their side, all saying there's a fucking problem with this DNA. And the state isn't producing a single DNA rebuttal expert.
Okay, Miss Potts, you are 100% correct, and that it is ludicrous thinking that there was going to be a fingerprint analyst. I don't think there's going to be one either, but we don't know because we haven't seen their list. But it also doesn't say they're not calling a DNA analyst. And a lot of people, not just you, are also misinterpreting that section of the document. So let's take a look. So if we read this, it says the state disclosed 25 experts. Of those, only 5 include actual expert reports. Notably, not a single DNA expert opinion or report was produced. Instead, the state's disclosures refer to the Bates numbered pages and say, this disclosure is provided as an ad. Okay, as an aid, you can read the rest of it. But nowhere in there does it say that there's not a DNA expert, nor does it say there is a DNA expert. It's just saying that there is no opinion or report produced from a DNA expert. Now, I have the opinion, as well as a lot of other people that I have talked to with great legal minds, that Riley Nolan, the supervisor of the Idaho State Forensics Lab, will be who will testify about the DNA. And if that is the case, her CV and all her information was already turned over to the defense a long time ago during discovery. Because if you recall, Ann Taylor was requesting all lab personnel's information, including Riley Nolan's. And she would not be testifying on opinions, okay? She would only be testifying upon the process and that there was a DNA match. So her job is not to get up there and try to argue against the defense experts. Her job is to say, hey, here's the DNA. Here's the chain of custody. We ran it. It was a direct match to Brian Kohberger. That is not opinion-based. That is based on the actual process and what happened. So they would not need to submit any opinion summary from her. And her reports would have already been turned in because that is all the DNA chain of custody and all of the forensic analysis of the DNA. So the defense would already have that. So I think it's getting blown out of proportion with people saying, oh, there's not a DNA expert that's going to testify. The state doesn't need an expert. They just need the actual lab person that ran the DNA to testify. And they are an expert as far as that goes, but they don't need somebody to get up there and opine. They just need to show the facts. So I hope that helps on that. And then one more thing I wanted to address that Miss Potts said, because I still hear a lot of people saying this like it means absolutely no evidence of anything was found in Kohberger's car.
These are the same people who, for how long, said the car was going to be a rolling crime scene. And then when it came back that the car was not only was the car not a crime scene, there wasn't a single trace of biological material from the crime in that vehicle, apartment, parents' home, office, nothing connecting him to the crime.
So let's get a little refresher here. Mr. Logston said there is no explanation for the total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Mr. Kohberger's apartment, office, home, or vehicle. Notice what he says. DNA evidence. He doesn't say evidence. He specifically says DNA evidence. Now, I'm not going to go clear out into the weeds on the part where he says there's no connection to the victims, because a lot of murderers had no connection to their victims until they killed them. Ted Bundy, no connection to any of the women he killed. Dahmer, no connection to the people he killed. Richard Ramirez, randomly went in houses. No connection to the people he killed. So if you're looking for connection, I don't think you're going to find one, because he had no Instagram account. So I'm not arguing that part. But Logston carefully chose his words, and he never said no evidence. He said no DNA evidence. So that doesn't mean that there wasn't evidence in the car or the house or his apartment. We won't know that until trial. Because, yes, they've given us a list of items that were taken from his car and from his apartment and his house, but it never said what the analysis on any of that was, because that's all under the gag order. And just because DNA wasn't found in the car doesn't mean there wasn't traces from the victims or other things from the victims found. Also, DNA trace could have been there, but if destroyed by an oxidizing bleach, you can't make a match to a victim. So Logston's very good with how he words things. If there was truly no evidence, he would have said no evidence, not no DNA evidence. Also, think about if the car and the apartment and the house supposedly exonerate him, showing that there's no proof at all that he was involved in the murders, then why the motions to suppress everything that was collected from the car, the house, and the apartment? Wouldn't you want to walk into trial and say, look, all of these search warrants yielded nothing. Nothing, Your Honor. My client's innocent. Why are you trying to suppress those if they don't show anything? So just think about that one. And I know a lot of people are going to hit back and say, well, the defense tries to suppress everything. Yes, I understand that. But I would think that if that truly was exonerating to your client, you would be like, they're nothing. Same with those AT&T records. If those records supposedly show that he was not near Moscow, then why try to suppress them? Because that could be your biggest piece of evidence you can use against the prosecution and say, look, his phone records show he was here and not here. So why would you try to get those thrown out? Just think about that for a little bit. I was going to do a longer video because people are also misinterpreting the defense's reply about the pen register trap and trace. I'm seeing all kinds of interesting and incorrect takes on that one, but I'm going to put that into a different video tomorrow because that's going to be a long one because we're going to have to go through some of the case law as we discuss it. So, and as usual, if there's something you would like me to do a video on, let me know, and have a good night.